Am I the asshole for exposing the true paternity of my friend's son at her family gathering? This sounds so bad, I know, and I am mortified, but I have no idea what I was doing. I, 40 female, was invited to stop by and see one of my dearest friends from childhood at her mother's home yesterday evening. She lives overseas and hadn't been in the States for years, so she wanted me to stop by even though they had other family visiting her mother as well. When I got there, my friend introduced me to a couple of her cousins and their husbands. At that point, all the kids were downstairs in the playroom, but she called her son to come up so I could meet him. Her son came and shook my hand, and I remarked how handsome he was. He has deep dimples and gorgeous hazel eyes with long lashes. Right behind him was a girl about the same age with the same eyes and dimpled. I said to my friend, "Oh, I didn't know you had a daughter too. You two look like twins." The room was suddenly quiet. My friend's son corrected me and said the girl is his cousin, not his sister. My friend was shooting daggers at me with her eyes as if I said something terrible, and her cousin, who I later find out was the mother of the girl, got up and left the room looking upset. Only this afternoon, when my friend's younger sister called, did I find out why. So apparently my friend had an affair with her cousin's husband when she lived with them briefly, and her son is a product of that affair. From what I was just told, she won't admit it, but everyone has suspected it because the older her son gets, the more he looks like the man. I honestly didn't notice the resemblance last night because the husband had just given me a quick wave from the far side of the room where he was watching a game. The reason the cousin, his wife, got upset and left the room is because she suspected something for years, but everyone has worked hard at convincing her she's paranoid and seeing a resemblance that's not there. So I'm the asshole in the scenario now and ruin everyone's Christmas, or at least that's how it seems because my friend won't even return my calls or texts.
My 24 female friend, 24 female, wants me to believe that my fiancé, 28 male, violated her. I'm out of town for the weekend. Had to go babysit for my sister. My friend knows this and still decided to go to my apartment because she was too drunk to make it to her place. She knew I wouldn't be there. Heard my fiancé barely even talk. They never hang out unless I'm there. But supposedly, she still went without even telling me. My fiancé messaged me right away that she was there and that he didn't know what to do. I told him to let her stay in our guest bedroom. She went to bed and my fiancé and I FaceTimed until super late. My friend didn't tell me that she was there until this morning. She calls me saying that she went to stay at my place last night, but had to leave super early this morning after my fiancé violated her. She swears it happened. After talking to him, I feel like it's possible that it didn't happen. I don't want to dismiss my friend's feelings, but I've also known my fiancé for over 10 years and know he's a good guy. I've known this friend for a year and I don't think she's a bad person either. My friend said she won't press charges, but just wants me to know what he did. I don't know what to believe. Of course, this all happens 2 months from our wedding. How should I handle this? How do I know who's lying? Am I the a-hole for not inviting my friends for an annual New Year's trip because they didn't invite me last year? Anyway, so my friends and I have been traveling for every New Year since we were 16. We are in our early 20s now. It's a friend group of 6 people, 3 girls and 3 guys. And naturally, we all dated someone from the group at some point in high school. The guy I used to date and me broke up in 2020 but stayed friends. He found a new girlfriend a few months after that. Let's call her Amy. But I was okay with it and we all continued to hang out. Now New Year 2021 is coming up and we start to plan our trip. We were supposed to go to Greece. Usually I'm the one talking to the agencies and trying to save as much money as we can. Everything is fine and going well until about a month before the trip. My now ex best friend comes over and tells me that Amy isn't comfortable with me going on a trip because everyone is coupled up and I was single. And given my history with her boyfriend, she felt awkward. I felt sorry because I never got the feeling that she didn't like me or anything. So I asked if that means that she's not coming or what. Turns out that she still wanted to come, just didn't want me there. I was kind of hurt by this, but even more when the rest of my friends agreed that maybe it would be better if I didn't come, so there would be no drama on the trip. Anyways, I didn't go, kind of stayed away from Amy and my ex since then, and stopped hanging out as much with all of them. Then not long ago, Amy and ex broke up. I don't know why. And now this year's trip is coming up. I already have plans with my roommates and we are going to Amsterdam. And when my friends learned about this, they just assumed they are coming with us as well. I told them that roommates and I are going alone, and if they want to go, they can plan it for themselves, but that this is not a group trip. It's petty, I know, but feels right to do to them what they did to me. Anyways, they called me some names and we had a fight. And now I'm starting to wonder if maybe I am in the wrong. I mean, I'm ending years-long friendship over some stupid trip, so am I the a-hole? I, 29 male, can't seem to forgive my sister, 26 female, after she completely bailed on me when I was on the brink of being homeless. My sister from a young age has had only one person to rely on, and that person was me. We come from a broken family. with one parent that was only around till I was 5 and the other who was stuck in a cycle of addiction. Because of our situation, I grew up very quickly and shielded her from things as much as I could. She obviously was aware of what was going on, but she was not in the crosshairs. I started with stealing from our mother to make sure we had food and bills were paid. I got a part-time job at 13 because we couldn't rely on our mother. And when I graduated high school, I immediately got 2 jobs and we moved out. I had to push my sister through high school. She wasn't an easy teen for obvious reasons, on top of going month to month trying to get as much money together to pay our bills. Then at 19, she finally graduated after being held back a year. She changed her tune a lot and she started working as well and had her own place when she was 21. I finally got a shot to do something for myself and got a degree. As a result, I got a much better job. But unfortunately, that was right before the pandemic hit. So I pretty much went from hired to fired as I was a new hire. Now, the reason I'm saying all that is not to pat myself on the back, but to stress why my reaction is the way it is. I was out of work, on the brink of losing my apartment. It only had one person who I expected I could turn to, my sister. She was recently married, still lives obviously, with her husband. So I asked if I could stay a few weeks, at most a few months until I got a new job. It was a no. I was taken aback, but it remained to be a no. A week or 2 later, I was kicked out of my apartment. So I asked again and it was a no. At this point, I'm homeless. And the only reason I didn't end up sleeping on the damn streets was because I could crash with a few friends until I got a temporary job. I rented a room with a bunch of roommates for a while. Eventually got a job in my field again and I'm now doing fine. That said, I have not spoken to my sister since. She has called, messaged, banged on my door, sent crying voice messages, apologized dozens of times, tried to explain herself, tried going to my job, tried going to friends. Everything. I haven't said a word to her, and it's been over a year now. She recently had a child and she is still desperately trying to reach out. She claims her husband refused to let me stay. He even reached out several times to beg me to reach out. But to me, the one time I needed her, she basically tells me to F myself. And I feel like it was the last push I needed to just end that chapter of my life. I feel bad, but just not bad enough, I guess. Even my friends and my girlfriend are on my case that I should forgive her. And that they understood it at first, but now think I'm being a hole. What would you guys do?
Storytime about how I dumped my girlfriend when I found out she had cancer. Am I the bad guy? My girlfriend and I have dated for almost 7 years. In that time, she always wanted to get married, but I never really felt married, so I never proposed. 2 years ago, I started feeling ready and I decided to buy a ring. But unfortunately, she was diagnosed with cancer. She ended up having to stay in the hospital for a few months and underwent a bunch of therapy. All the treatments and everything were making her lose her hair, and I pretty much became totally unattracted to her. I know this sounds so harsh, but it's the truth. I struggled every single day as I fell out of love with her. And I talked to my mom about this. She told me to just have patience and to stick it out. But I just could not do it. I also didn't want to deal with having to take her to the hospital and helping her with the medication and helping her with the treatments. I wanted my own life. And suddenly I found myself having to drive her everywhere, feed her, clothe her, basically do everything for her. After a while, I asked her mom to move in with us to help me out. And this is when stuff started getting really bad. Her mom was basically taking care of her 24/7, so I pretty much did whatever I wanted. I would go out with my friends, and I even started dating other girls. Here's the thing. My girlfriend and her family have a lot of money, so I basically didn't have to work at all while I was with her. Her parents paid for our rent and pretty much everything we ever did, so I couldn't really break up with her. So I really only stayed in the relationship for the money. Like I said in part 1, my girlfriend's mom moved in with us to help me take care of her, but I pretty much took advantage and decided to start dating other people. I downloaded every dating app I could think of, and I would go on dates every single day. I lied to my girlfriend and her mom and told them that I got a new job. This way I could pretty much stay out all day. So I found myself with all of this new freedom. I would go on dates and pay for everything with my girlfriend's money. I know you guys probably hate me right now, but it gets worse. After a few weeks, I ended up with 2 new girlfriends. So in total, I had 3 girlfriends, and I got really good at lying to each one and spending time with them. I'd see one of them every single morning and I would tell her that I was going to go to work. But then I would really go to the other girlfriend's house and spend the afternoon with her, and then I would end up going back to my apartment where my original girlfriend lived, and I would spend the rest of the night with her. At this point, she was starting to feel better with all the treatments, but I was just not attracted to her anymore. So I decided to be honest with her and I told her that I wasn't attracted to her, just to see how she would react. She didn't even get mad, she just started to cry and beg me not to leave her. That's when she told me that she didn't want to be alone. But at that point, I just couldn't do it anymore. I was falling in love with my other girlfriends. Here's what I did. I went to my other 2 girlfriends and told them a new story. I told them that I got fired from my new job and that I needed a place to move in. I also told them that I wouldn't be able to afford rent. One of them basically kicked me out of her apartment, but the other one told me that I could stay with her for as long as I wanted to without having to pay for rent. So that's the girl that I went with. Then I went to my OG girlfriend's house and I told her that I just couldn't be with her anymore and that I have fallen for someone else. This broke her heart and her dad was really close to kicking my ass. They took all my credit cards and cut me out of her account. So I'm broke as hell right now, but at least I'm happier. Eventually I'm gonna have to get an actual job, so I'm still trying to figure that out. But my current girlfriend is paying for everything. And my ex is in remission now, which actually does make me happy for her. I'm about to get murdered in the comments, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
I was adopted at 3 months old. I had a dysfunctional family growing up, but I was cared for and loved. Both my adoptive parents passed away in separate car accidents, my dad when I was 17 and my mom 3 years ago when I was 24. I had a semi-open adoption, but my parents requested my adoptive parents to stop sending them photos and updates about me when I was less than a year old. I had a vague idea of who my parents were. I grew up knowing their names and I had several photos of them. I did a DNA test and was matched with 3 full siblings, which shocked me. I was always told my parents were young, barely knew each other, and wanted to further their education. About 3 months ago, I decided to Google their names and found them on social media. It turns out they're married to each other now with 7 more children they had together. I stalked them on Facebook for a bit and it seems like they have a relatively happy life. I was shocked to find out that I have 7 full siblings and that my sister, who is closest in age to me, is actually only 11 months younger. I was even more shocked to find out that I have an older, full brother who was not adopted out, who is only a year and a few months older than me. I ended up reaching out to my birth mother via Facebook, telling her that I would love to get to know her and that I've had a great life and I have no expectations. She took a month to respond, and when she did, she was surprised that I reached out and to please not contact any of my siblings as they weren't aware of my existence. I didn't respond for a few days, but I ended up just asking her why she chose to give me up and why she never told anyone about me. She responded and said that I was a NICU baby. She and my birth father were 17 when I was born and they weren't prepared to raise a disabled child. She said at the time they were under the impression that I would never live independently and they weren't in a place to have a special needs child. I was again shocked. I definitely always was in the lower priced house for growth until puberty, but according to my grandmother, by the time I was 8 months old, I was hitting all the markers for regular mental development. I have an MS in mathematics from a tier 1 university. I was an athlete in high school and I never had any issues in school beyond being really horrible in art class. I'm married with a child. I'm a fully functioning adult with a great career and a family of my own. And it hurts to know that I was given up because of the slight chance that I wouldn't turn out to be perfect. Part of me feels like I miss out on life with siblings. I was raised as an only child, and that I could still have a chance to know them and love them, and that my daughter would have a chance to have cousins. My youngest siblings aren't even in elementary school yet, and I could have a normal sibling bond with them, or at least be part of their lives from a young age, and I wish that I had that chance. I'm not angry at my birth parents for giving me away. I don't hate them. I'm hurt, but I'm not angry. I am angry that they've requested I not reach out to my adult siblings, and I'm considering doing it anyway. Should I ignore my birth parents' wishes and reach out to them anyway?
Am I the a-hole for refusing to drive my drunk friends after I wasn't invited to their party? Simple conflict. Lol. Scenario: university students. Some friends of mine used to throw big parties, but when they got too big, most people in our shared friend group were uninvited. Myself sometimes included. I didn't like trying to keep the party secret from our other friends, so I got really uninvited. I was upset at first, but now I don't really care. It's cliche, but I have more fun with the uninvited squad. However, I'm really close with Ray and she knows I'm responsible. When we used to go to parties together, I was the food picker-upper. Last night she crept away from a baking session, claimed to be tired, and lo and behold, wound up at a party at 1 a.m., which I found out when she texted me asking if I was sober. I said yes, but refused when Ray asked if I could drive. She replied, "But we're drunk and we want food. We're at Alex's, party host." I told Ray I didn't feel like picking up food for a party I wasn't invited to, but if she needed to walk home or to our housing complex to pick up some crappy campus food, I'd drive. But to say so soon because I was going to bed. Drama. At this point, her boyfriend took her phone, I'm told, and texted that it was a prick move to leave my drunk friends and it was my responsibility to make sure they were safe and didn't die or get arrested. I texted Ray to think ahead next time she went to a party. Good night. This morning was sort of tense. I wasn't angry except for that one text from boyfriend. Ray came up and said we ended up getting somebody sober to get us food, and I alluded to the text. She said her boyfriend texted it, but it sounds like she agrees with him. They're a little salty I wouldn't drive. So am I the a-hole for refusing to help them out? I feel like they might be right, that I should care for my compromised friends, and it was irresponsible of me to be passive, knowing they were drunk and wanted to drive somewhere. However, I've been drunk with them before and they've always understood not to drive drunk. And I think I don't owe them because why should I help out their secret parties that I wasn't invited to? Oh, also I think this is important information. The place we throw the parties is a 3-minute walk from our housing complex. You can get back and forth easily without driving. Also, food delivery services don't work on our campus. My husband wanted me to promise him to never date anyone if he passes. I, female 36, have been married to my husband Thomas, male 34, for 6 years. He has a chronic heart condition that made him suffer for years. We have 2 kids together and he adores them, but couldn't be with them all the time or do normal activities together due to his condition. I work to be able to pay for rent/expenses and medical bills, which are the hardest. It's been like this for years. Thomas's health is greatly declining, and we recently were able to get him a device to improve his heart function, but it's not a long-term solution. Lately, Thomas has been asking me or the kids to sleep in bed with him. Before that, he used to sleep alone for medical reasons, including using catheter and having medical devices in his hand and chest. He was at a hospital for 2 weeks and said he missed me and the kids, although I was with him often. Last night, he was talking to me about what the kids told him they wanted to become when they grow up. He took his time to talk because this was a highly emotional moment for him. He kept telling me he knew he wasn't going to witness how our kids will turn out and what they become when they grow up. He said he'd be lucky if he could attend their next birthday, which I admit could be an exaggeration on his part. But I let him vent about what's been bothering him and try not to interrupt him. He then started talking about us, asking me what I would do if he passed away. Those questions I couldn't find an easy answer for. But he proceeded to ask if I was going to start over with someone new. He pulled my face close to his and said he wanted me to promise him to never date anyone after him, no matter what. I don't know why, but I froze in my place. He kept looking at me, telling me to promise him in front of our kids. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel hesitant. I had a very odd feeling, and something told me to not do it, especially not when he decided to get the kids involved. I pulled away and assured him he's the love of my life and everything I care about, as well as our children. He got upset, saying I was avoiding his request, and said he didn't expect me to even hesitate, let alone refuse to promise. I calmly explained how heavy his words were, but he said I probably had no problem seeing him dating someone. It might as well get the kids a new dad. I swore I'd never force my kids to call someone else dad, and he flat out called me a liar to my face. This made me speechless. He loudly told me to get out of the room. I tried to get him to calm down, but he started yelling at me to stop talking to him, after I made it clear he didn't mean that much to me. Then he told me to understand something, which is that he's going to make the kids promise him that if I ever meet someone new, then they should cut me out of their lives and stay with his family. I was in a shock. I called him unreasonable for thinking this was an acceptable thing to do to our kids. He said I should be happy I will no longer be held back by the kids, and that they live with their grandparents and aunts, not some guy I get married to. He kept insulting me till I broke down crying. He asked me to leave the room and threatened to pull his cannula if I stayed. I immediately walked out because I didn't want to get himself hurt over an argument. I understand he was just feeling scared and worried, but I think it was being unfair towards me with how he spoke to me. I felt so bad to the point where I wished I said yes to his promise if I knew he'd react this way. Everyone keeps telling me to have some grace and be patient because Thomas is dealing with so much right now, but they keep forgetting that I'm struggling too. I barely eat and basically have no appetite. I handle everything and have no room to vent, and yet I'm somehow at fault for how he acted? Frankly, I have no idea why I didn't promise him what he wanted and feel like he was being too harsh on me. Even the family say no matter what he does, I should just grin and bear. But I'm not sure if I can take it anymore. Am I the a-hole for chipping dog poop into my neighbor's front yard? I bought my house about 3 months ago. When I moved in, I noticed there were a couple dozen lumps of dried dog poop on one side of my front yard. Before I mowed the first time, I went out and picked them up with a plastic bag over my hand. The next day, I noticed a couple more fresh ones on my lawn, so I kept an eye out for the culprit. It didn't take long to realize that my next-door neighbors have some sort of Benji-looking fluff ball of a pooch that they let out unattended a couple of times a day. The dog would sniff around for a while, then run over into my yard and poop every time. It was as if he were trained that way. The daily poop accumulation rate seemed to be 2 or 3. I hardly knew my neighbors, so I was hesitant to approach them with this sort of issue right out of the gate. So I waited a couple of weeks, but I made sure to go out and pick up the poop while my neighbors were outside. One Saturday afternoon, I saw my neighbor out front while I was tending the garden. I said hello and started a simple conversation. After a few minutes, I mentioned the poop and said it would be appreciated if they could pick up after their dog. My neighbor laughed and said that's not from his dog, that there is a stray dog in the neighborhood that does that everywhere. What to do? I decided to train my video doorbell to the poop zone and set the sensitivity to high. Within a week, I had a robust collection of video evidence incriminating my neighbor's dog. I'm no poo pathologist, but it's also pretty clear to me that all the poo in my yard came from the same duggo bunghole. Armed with mountains of evidence, I took the opportunity to approach my neighbor's wife when she was walking the dog. I didn't go into forensic details, but simply asked her if she wouldn't mind picking up after her dog in my yard. She also denied it, and the conversation ended awkwardly at best. I spent several more days noodling over what to do. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I pulled a pitching wedge out of my golf bag and proceeded to chip dog scat from my front yard into my neighbor's. Beyond solving my immediate problem, I could also work a bit on my short game. This went on for some time. It became a weekly ritual that I sort of enjoyed. I did it without shame and in broad daylight. Everything was copacetic until last Saturday. I was out doing my thing when my neighbor's wife barged out her front door screaming. She told me that I can't do that and called me every name in the book, including the obligatory a-hole word. I tried to keep my cool and told her that I was simply returning what was theirs. Last thing I heard was that she was calling the police as she left. I continued and finished up my chipping session. I never heard from the police. I haven't seen my neighbors' faces, and I haven't seen another poop on my lawn. I'll probably have a horrible relationship with my neighbors forever now, but my immediate problem is solved. Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for getting mad at my brother's girlfriend for letting her kid eat my food? For context, my brother, 26 male, and I, 22 female, have lived in the same apartment for 3-ish years. It was a mutual decision and we split the cost of everything, 50-50. He earns more than I do, but the split cost is okay with me. His girlfriend, 24 female, started living with us almost a year ago, and her kid, 4 female not with my bro, comes to stay with us sometimes. This was not discussed at all, and while I don't really like kids, I don't generally mind her having around. His girlfriend doesn't share with the bills. She pitches in when she can and does her share of chores and cooking. So here's the thing. I work night shifts remotely. I buy snacks so I have something to munch on to keep me awake at night. My brother's girlfriend also stocks up on food for her kid, and this is generally classified as just for the kid. Nobody's allowed to touch it. Not that anyone would steal food from the kid in our house. I also keep my own stash of cookies and the like in our common area, as I don't want to attract ants in my room. The problem is, her kid sometimes wants to eat my food. If I'm there and they ask, I do share some. But I budget my stash, so I have enough till my next grocery run. However, recently I've noticed that my food gets depleted real fast, even though I've been eating less. Again, I really don't mind sharing as long as people ask. I asked my brother if he's been eating my food, but he says he hasn't. He did tell me that the kid prefers my cookies to what her mom gives her, so the mom has been giving her mine. I confronted his girlfriend and asked that they ask my permission next time before consuming my food. They both got mad at me, saying I shouldn't be so selfish and just share with the kid. Am I the a-hole here? It is just food, but it's been my only indulgence since my budget is tight.